Please take your seats quickly, ladies and gentlemen.
Hi guys, and welcome to 1minutetennis.com. In today's session, I want to talk about the relationship between the forehand and the backhand. Most of the players watching this, probably you, would love to have a free-flowing, powerful and aggressive forehand. But the reality is that the stroke that they trust the most, the stroke that you really can rely on, is the backhand. I want to show you why this strange relationship has developed, because it's the role of the shoulder and the different positions of the shoulder that's making your backhand reliable and your forehand unstable under pressure. And if you understand the correct movement of the shoulder in the forehand, then your forehand will become the dominant stroke and the go-to stroke in your game. There's been kind of an interesting evolution in tennis in the last 20 years, because at the pro level, the forehand has become more and more dominant. It's become a bigger, better and more aggressive weapon. In some cases, maybe even bigger and more aggressive than the serve. At recreational level, 20 years or more ago, then the forehand was the easy stroke and the backhand was where all the problems lie. But now, while on the pro level the forehand has become more and more dominant, at recreational level the forehand has become a bigger and bigger problem. And this is because of the role of the shoulders. You see, in my backhand, my shoulder, when I play the stroke, is ahead of my head and ahead of my body. So this becomes a fulcrum, a balancing point that I can swing around with stability. Whether it's two-handed or one-handed, the shoulder is a stable point that I can swing around, and so I'm going to have a consistent stroke as long as I line up with the ball correctly. And the old-fashioned classic forehand, which was far inferior to the modern stroke, but in the old-fashioned classic forehand, then the two arms tended to come forwards together, making a natural uniform movement of the shoulder. And so, although the shoulder begins behind the head, it naturally goes to the same position. So again, giving us a consistent reference point that we can swing around in the body. This reduced racket speed, this reduced spin, it has very few benefits except that you have that consistent point to swing around. So the backhand and the forehand of older technique tended to be very, very similar in this respect. But that brings us to the modern forehand. In any variation, whether it's the next gen forehand, whether you're looking at Federer, whether you're looking at Sinner, then there is the same difference in the role of the shoulder within the forehand. Because when we begin the stroke, as the racket lags behind with a passive extension of the wrist, then the shoulder is naturally dragged into external shoulder rotation. So now immediately we have an instability in the relationship between the body and the shoulder. See the old classic forehand? And there's no external shoulder rotation whatsoever. So it's just a smooth movement, placing the shoulder ahead of the body. But with the modern forehand, as we begin the kinetic chain, and then we have the racket lag, then the shoulder goes naturally into external shoulder rotation. It then recoils into adduction, where it comes back into the body. And so the natural movement, if you don't do anything with it, is external shoulder rotation and adduction, and see how it's coming through on a level plane. What's important to get the stability in the forehand, to give you a fixed point that you can swing around and yet still have the benefits of the spin and speed of the modern stroke, is that the shoulder goes forwards and upwards. And this you'll have to actually do. It doesn't happen naturally. So look, I go into the beginning of my stroke, my wrist is loose, my wrist then naturally has extension, it's a passive extension, so it just happens. And now my shoulder goes into external shoulder rotation because the racket and the wrist are pulling it back. But then from here, like a runway, can you push your shoulder forwards and upwards? So here, the stroke begins, forwards and upwards. Again, the stroke begins, forwards and upwards. And the result of this should be that your elbow, at minimum, gets up to about shoulder height. So here, now the elbow is a test. Don't put the elbow there. This is totally different. Here, and I placed my elbow up to shoulder height. No, the whole thing has become mechanical. And again, the shoulder is in an unstable position. If you get the shoulder right, going like a runway, going forwards and up, then the elbow will go to that position. And when the elbow comes up to that position, you've got natural lift in the stroke but also you have a stable position that the shoulder will move to every single time, just like in the classic forehand and just like in your backhand. When you have a stable position that you can swing around, then you now can reproduce the movement over and over again. And when you can do that, you can swing faster, freer, and have more success, more power, and more consistency. I hope this makes sense, because in the 25 or 35,000 people that I'm in communication with online and via social media, it's incredible the percentage of players who have difficulties on the forehand and yet have stability and trust on the backhand. The shoulder is almost always the issue. So look, you're swinging around a fixed point on the backhand, then the forehand is never going to be a fixed point, but it wasn't with the classic forehand, but it was a consistent point. If you don't push the shoulder forwards and upwards, then it becomes a consistently unstable point. When you push the shoulder forwards and upwards, it becomes a moving but consistent and stable point. If you like my ideas, then check out our books on Amazon. We have books on every aspect of the game covering this and many other aspects of the detailed technique of the game. We have biomechanical breakdowns of the strokes and then super simple solutions to help you improve and reach your genuine potential on the tennis court. Or for more personalized help, have a look at our online coaching. It's a totally unique service, it's inexpensive, and it really works. For more information, email me or check out the website. So marry and blend the trust and consistency of your backhand with the spin and power of the modern forehand. Your forehand will become your dominant stroke and you'll play better tennis today. Thanks for watching, and see you next time for more unique tennis lessons that really work.